my darling. Thank you so much for having a chat with me.
You're welcome.
So tell me, whereabouts are you?
So I currently live in France, just outside Paris.
Okay. And how long have you been there?
So in September, it will be 4 years that we are living here, and it's my second time in France. I lived here 10 years ago for just under a year, and then we were living in the city center in Paris.
All right. And you prefer being outside of Paris rather than being in the city?
Yes, now I do. So just a little bit of context. We were living in Paris. I'm married to a Frenchman who I met in Ireland, and I lived in Ireland for 10 years, and then we moved here. And while we were living in Paris, he got a job opportunity in Johannesburg. So we took it because I wanted to return to South Africa, and it's always easier, him being the foreigner, to have a job.
Yeah.
So we left Paris for Johannesburg and loved it. And it was a new adventure because I'm originally from Durban, so I didn't know Johannesburg very well. And we lived there for just over 6 years, and then we returned to France. And the reason we didn't want to go back to Paris is we came back with 4 pets, and we had lived in a house in Emerentia, and we loved it, and we wanted a house in France, and that's how we ended up in the outskirts.
Sure.
In a house.
So you've done a bit of traveling.
A little bit.
Yeah. And whereabouts in Durban are you from?
I grew up in Isipingo, which is on a little bit south of the city. And before I left the country, I was living in the city center on North Beach.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we are originally from Durban, so
okay,
we know that area very well.
Okay.
And we love Durban. My daughter was actually born in Ballito.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
And where are you now?
We in Hermanus, in the Western Cape.
Lovely. Okay.
So that's, I mean, this is also amazing. You can't, Durban has become so crime-ridden. It's so bad now that you actually don't want to live in Durban. So tell me quickly, your family all still in South Africa?
No. So my mom and dad now live in Ireland. Well, not now. They've been there for really long time.
Okay.
And my sister as well. So I have no immediate family left in South Africa. It's all extended family. And yeah, that's it. So my reason for going back was I wanted to feel connected to who I am again. And I was sort of tired after 10 years of being the foreigner.
Yeah.
And my husband fell in love with the country. He'd visited before, but he really loved it. We loved it. We loved the lifestyle. We loved everything. But of course, all our immediate family were in Europe. And we left Johannesburg because my father-in-law has cancer. He'd had cancer for a few years. And my husband's an only child. And you know, it just didn't seem fair that, you know, we don't spend this quality time with family, and we were planning a family of our own, and it hadn't happened in that time. And, you know, we have no regrets coming back because our children were born now in France and they get to be with their grandparents. Obviously, the pandemic hasn't helped, but at least we're close enough. We're close enough. But you know, every day we're yearning for life in South Africa again, but we know it'll happen one day, just not now.
All right. So the plans are to come back to South Africa at some point.
Exactly. Yeah.
You one of very few people that are looking forward to coming back to South Africa.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I'm on many groups.
You know, when I started this, I said, the one thing I want to do with this channel is to give people a real sense of the truth of what is happening in their lives, you know, as an expat living abroad, specifically South African expats, knowing what our culture is like, and then, you know, to portray the truth. It doesn't help. You get so much on the internet or on YouTube, but it's not the real stories.
No. And
so you are looking forward to coming back to South Africa. What would make you come back besides the the lifestyle, because we've got a great lifestyle. But
yeah,
it's a challenge at the moment.
Yeah. Look, to be honest, yes, the lifestyle was an added benefit. It's not the main pull factor for me, because we live a very simple lifestyle. And sometimes the way people lived in Johannesburg for me was too much. It was just too opulent, versus the disparity of those that had nothing. And it's just life. It happens everywhere. I mean, in Paris, we have people sleeping in parks all the time. We have tents everywhere. It's awful. Okay. And people don't see that when they're looking at the Eiffel Tower or they're seeing things on TV, but there's a massive refugee issue in the city. And it's not nice. So it's everywhere. But so for me, the thing about South Africa is, it's so hard to explain. And I guess you're South African, so you could understand, but it's the way the sun sets. It's the way it feels on my skin. It's just the fruit. It's the simple things. It's being able to go to the bush. I'm really into the wildlife. I studied conservation in South Africa. It's, to feel like you're connected to that. And, my family are not African. I'm fourth generation Indian. But I don't know anybody in India. I've never been to India, so for me,
that's the story about most actual Indians living in South Africa. They haven't been to India.
Yeah, and it's not because I don't want to go. The opportunity just hasn't arrived. And, we hoped to go all these years, and we got to move and live in South Africa, and we were there, and we were like, let's just suck this up. Yeah. So for me to come back, it's for those simple things. It's also to feel a little bit connected to where I'm from. And it's just the environment. I think, people say I'm very idealistic, and maybe I am, but when I lived there for those 6 years, it was special. I got to feel connections with people for the smallest thing, people from across Africa, because as you know, in South Africa now, everybody's living there.
Yeah, very diverse.
And I had my one goal when I moved back, well, two. One was to know myself better, and two was to work for myself. To learn as much as possible about the years I've missed out on, because I've gone for 10 years, and my previous job was in an NGO. So I grew up in Ireland in a way professionally, and I wanted the same experience in South Africa. And my second goal was to learn as fast as possible. And I had 4 jobs in 5 years or 6 years. Like, I just kept moving because I was just inhaling everything. And I was super impressed with how things were. I didn't feel there was some areas which I feel from a professional point of view where I had better exposure to in Europe, but I was happy to bring that back to South Africa, because that's what it's about. You want to share and grow and give and take, and, all of that. And I was able to do that. And before I left, I had my own business, which was like a huge achievement for me. It was a personal goal. And I think from an entrepreneurship point of view, South Africa just has it. It's the mindset. We're all about problem solving. We're all about giving our best, getting the best. We demand that because we've been exposed to it. And because of everything that's happened in South Africa, whatever it is, people have had to become entrepreneurial to survive, from the person selling fruit on the side of the road to the person who's, selling clothing, earrings, or something even bigger, like, restaurant chains, franchises, all of that. So for me, that space was exceptional to come back to and experience it. And people complain in South Africa about service, and I'm like, hang on, you have not experienced it in France, because it is so bad. In France, it's like an issue, it's a huge issue. The customer service is so lacking. And whilst you might have a luxurious experience in like a big luxury house, you're not getting that same experience everywhere. And I really miss that. And I struggle with it. And so does my husband. And he is French, Yeah. And I think those are the things that were really important to us living in South Africa, and that feeling of community. And I moved back in my 30s, so it wasn't easy to just make friends. So work was important, because I made friends at work, and I reconnected with high school friends, university friends. And yes, we would see people, but I think a struggle was trying to get back into cliques, because everywhere, this is in every country, people already form their cliques. And, it's harder when you're the outsider, because if people haven't left, they don't completely understand or empathize with what it's like to have to come back and start all of those new relationships. So I think that was something we'd struggled with a bit, but we did make friends, and it was lovely. It really was.
So Dharsh, there's so many people leaving South Africa at the moment, because there is a massive problem with unemployment in South Africa. And the safety is really becoming a very, very, very big problem. You know, it's like I said on one of the videos that I spoke to someone, it's not small crimes. We're talking about extremely serious crimes where people are getting mugged and killed and stabbed, and it's going into the smaller areas now as well. You know, I mean, the cities have never been really that safe. But we're now talking about smaller portions and pockets that are being hit, and old people, and it's really, really bad. So taking that into consideration, because remember, you guys don't get the news getting, and you don't see really internationally what is really, really going on the ground here. Our services are really falling apart. We again now sitting with power cuts. It's been ongoing this entire week again. So our municipal services are failing. Our police services are failing. We actually, I'm busy talking to someone now to get police clearances. And it looks like it could take us a good 6 months to get it sorted, unless you work through someone that knows someone that knows someone. So,
oh no.
Yes, it's a really big concern. So, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to say to you, don't come back to South Africa.
Yeah, no, I know.
We need the people that's left. But 99% of the people that I speak to that's gone abroad said they can't come back. They've got kids, and their kids can't go to schools here because our schooling system is not good. Not good at all, unless you go to a private school and you know that it's a very good private school. You know, what do you have to offer your kids besides the fact that it's beautiful and it's sunny and we've got amazing weather? And you know, those things are the questions that we're asking at the moment.
Yeah, and look, I hear you, and because I know people there, I'm very aware of the crime, and I know it's awful, the femicide, the rapes, it's just like awful things, you know, it's terrible. And I think I'm one of those people that wants to be part of the solution. And I know it's not an overnight one. It's going to take years, it's going to take decades. And I think because I've lived abroad and I know what it's like, I've always, for the longest time, said I can't give up on this place. It's where I come from. And my husband and I, we had our children through assisted conception. So we used an IVF clinic in Johannesburg. We're in our 40s now. So we really, to come back, we'd have to come back.
Never mind.
And yeah,
your parent. It's fun.
Yeah, and we'd have to come back to create a business for ourselves. You know, we won't be able to just walk into a job. So it's a lot of things that we have to think about. But I also want my children to experience growing up in a country where they are part of a community that's mixed. Like, I mean, France is quite mixed, so they won't be short of that, but one where there's a connection, you know. And yes, right now they're very French because they're growing up in France, but they're also half South African.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and I've said this, perhaps I'm being idealistic, but because I've lived abroad, and now I have children, maybe on my next visit, it will be a visit, it won't be a move, I'll get to see what it's like to be a parent in South Africa. And I know a lot of people who have left because they want a brighter future for their children. And at the same time, when I follow the groups I follow on Facebook and social media, I'm seeing so much growth and positivity in South Africa. I'm seeing people growing businesses. I'm seeing people creating things. And I'm like, there's movement, the energy is shifting. So for me, my advice to anybody is, if you have a desire to leave and you want to, do it. If you have the opportunity, do it, because you can't live in fear. You can't live with regret. And if you have that opportunity, you need to explore it so you know what it's like. And, you know, it's important that if your children are old enough, they have the memories and they have the choice to one day go back. And I say that honestly, because I think everybody who can have the experience to work in another country, even if it's just across a border, because there's already a different experience, do that, because you learn about yourself, you learn about things. And if you choose to come back, you know, you're going to bring back something that can change something.
Yeah.
So, you know, in France, it's very pretty and it has some very similar landscapes to South Africa. Sometimes if you're driving, you think, well, I could just close my eyes now and I'm in Cape Town or I'm in the Berg. So there's a lot of familiarity. The weather this last season has been awful. So my husband keeps talking about Johannesburg. We have had, I mean, summer or spring, summer only started last week and we're already in June when spring should have started 3 months ago.
Yeah.
We've had so much rain. We have a little pond in our garden, and last year we already had the frogs hatch out of tadpoles. They've only just become tadpoles now, so that's been slowed down. So there's a lot of change, but from a human and social point of view, you know, France is currently got its own set of problems. It's a bit of a time bomb with regards to the social issues that are happening with a lot of refugees, a lot of racial issues. Police are struggling. There are areas they cannot go into because they're completely attacked. So there's a lot going on here.
Okay, so that sounds a little bit like South Africa then.
Yeah. They have the infrastructure here, definitely, because it's a very different government.
Yeah.
But even within the government, you know, the current president is not popular. We had people rioting for months. This country is all about, what do we say? In French, it's manifestation, but it's actually like, what do we call it? I can't even think of the English word, but it's when people, it's not riot, but they march. What's it called?
No, they toy.
Yeah, but here it's very normal. It's all about rights for employees. The law protects employees. It protects people who rent, so that you're very protected socially. But then on the other side, if you're the employer or you're the person that rents out the apartment, it's tough. So people are very free to march for equal rights and for their demands. And we had almost a year of marches every Saturday across the country with people wearing these yellow security vests. But it started off where it's called gilet jaune, gilet meaning the jacket and jaune meaning yellow. So the yellow jackets. And it started originally because they were unhappy about some change that was going to happen with the pricing around, I think, diesel or something like that. And then it grew and grew and grew. And their
everyone is unhappy.
Yes. And they're not like in a political party, they're just a group of members of the public. So it was strange. We had looting happening in Paris. People just put on masks and started to like break shop windows. It was crazy. Cars were on fire. And this was in a developed country in like one of the most populous cities in the world. So it was awful. We couldn't travel into the city. And then the pandemic hit, you know, and equally with the pandemic, we've had a lot of issues. I mean, obviously, some of the pluses of living in this particular country is healthcare. So we have an amazing system. You have access. We have standard cover, and then we have private health insurance. And we have a really good one. My husband has a good job. I just had crowns put into my mouth, and it didn't cost me anything. But that's because of the cover that I have. But on the other side, I wholeheartedly found all the IVF treatment I got in South Africa. In France, it's free up to 3 tries, but in South Africa, you have to pay. But I think I still got the better treatment, irrespective, because the doctors I dealt with were on the ball. Here in this country, little things like surrogacy is illegal. You can't have surrogacy. You can't have donors. It's completely different. Like our constitution in South Africa is ahead in terms of how they've put that as a priority. So there's so many like things that, you know, I wish we had here. The banking system, OMG, don't even let me get started. FNB is like so far ahead. You have no idea. If I want to transfer
FNB,
yes.
When last have you banked with FNB?
2 days ago, I paid somebody online. Yeah. In South Africa. So I bought flowers for someone. So it was so easy. I did the entire thing online and they sent me a photo and I paid them. And it was, if I have to do that here in France, it would take 3 to 4 days. And if it's the same bank.
You mean
no, seriously.
Get by then. Shine.
Yes.
Oh,
but
no.
It's like 2021. You don't get any in your phone, no notifications whatsoever. You have no idea what you're doing. I have the app. I've forgotten the password. It's an effort. I have to go into the store or the bank, or if I try to do it online, it's so complicated. I've forgotten my password. I have no idea what's happening in my bank account. So for me, the banking is so bad. There's no service. The bank I was with 10 years ago, my account closed. When I moved back, I was like, oh, can I reopen my account? And they told me I have to go to the branch where I opened it. And I'm like, are you kidding? That's like in the city. I don't live there anymore. They had no visibility of the account. My husband came in to talk on my behalf. They did not offer me anything. We left the bank and walked into another bank, and they opened an account immediately. So there's no desire to keep you. Crazy. It's in the culture, though.
That's strange. But and how do you get on with the French people? I know your husband's French, but I mean, how do you get on with the French? Is it for you, or?
Look, there are a lot of people here who are expats or people like me married to a French person, and they really struggle to fit into the culture. So I'm seeing it every day. I'm on loads of social media groups, and some people are here 20 years and they struggle. It's hard. One, it's hard when you've had a happy career in another country and you come here. It's very hard to break into the job market. The language is a huge factor. So if you don't have great French, the reality is it's going to be hard. I haven't gone through that process yet because I've taken quite a long maternity leave. So I haven't put myself through that. But I'm seeing that it's hard. I also know that the work environment is very tough. From what people have said, it's very competitive. It's not very supportive. People feel very threatened. So there's that aspect. And it's also very protective of the employee. So it's very different to how we would approach things in South Africa. You can't just be fired here. So there's a lot of jobs where you have short contracts. So everybody wants a permanent contract. And even if you have a permanent contract, you can't just leave the job. You have to negotiate to break the contract. So it's very, very different work-wise. But culturally, look, I'm blessed that I have wonderful in-laws and they're very open-minded. And they're not typically French from some of the things I hear. The French can be judgmental. I mean, if you don't speak the language, which is, I suppose, understandable because it's France and they're proud of their language. So you have to make efforts. I use my English strictly when I get calls from numbers I don't know because I know they're telemarketers. So I know they're going to hang up on me. So I'm just like, sorry, hello.
Never.
So I don't have to entertain that. But you've got to make the effort. You really have to try. And I understand why. And they can come across as being very arrogant if you don't make the effort. So simple things like if you're in a shop and you will go up to somebody in South Africa, we would say, excuse me, can you help me? Here, you need to say hello. If you don't say hello and then excuse me, they'll just say hello and look at you like you were so rude. And at first it was like, what's the big deal? But now I understand it because you're approaching somebody and you're not bothering to say hello. You're just going straight into excuse me. So now I get it. I understand these little nuances and I play to them. And I get it, but it can be hard.
Is your French good?
It's okay. It could be better. I'm lazy. I can get on. When I lived here 10 years ago, it was awful. I had already studied it while living in Ireland, but it was just all theory. I didn't practice. So when I moved here, I got stage fright. I couldn't open my mouth. Like the words wouldn't come out. But I did work. Here 10 years ago. I worked in a cafe because I wanted just something completely different from corporate. And it really helped me. I learned all the words for items in the kitchen. And I had a few boo-boos where I misunderstood someone, but it gave me the confidence and I'm so glad I did it. And now I can cope. I think I'd struggle with a full-on corporate job because I don't have all the language, but I have everyday language, so I can get on. Which helps. And now my children are speaking French, so I need to really up the game.
Yeah, that's very good. I actually worked for a Frenchman years ago. My first job was for a Frenchman. He was Jean-Marie Lihodi, his surname was.
Okay.
And one of his French friends phoned the office and I answered the phone and he says he wants to speak to Germain. And I thought he said, my mom. And I'm saying, my mom? He says, Germain. And the next moment, this guy rushes into my office. He says, I'm Germain.
Okay. Oh, that's funny.
I couldn't speak to him, man. We couldn't communicate because he was so French.
Yeah, yeah.
And
it's hard. Yeah, putting a lot of pressure on people. So I'm not sure when the decision is going to come up, but I'm currently looking at, because children can go to school here at age 3, but it's part of a school, but it's really like nursery school. So they do learn things, like they can be reading by 5 actually. So they learn a lot of things. And I know a British woman here who's opening her own school in September. So it'll be a very small private style. She knows how I feel about elitist schools, so it will be private only from the sense that it's independent. So I'm just waiting for information to look at whether that's an option for us. But my kids ideally would start next year then, because they'll only be 3 next year.
That's so small.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And it's a long day. The school day here is 8:30 to 4:30. But your kids can go home for 2 hours from 11:30 to 1:30 if you want to feed them at home. So a lot of people do that. And they also nap in school at that age. And I had lots of opinions about it, but when my kids started creche, they were actually doing 9:30 to 6. And then I was like, okay, now you can just swallow your words because they're in creche for that long, So school it's the same. So yeah, it's different, because I think by having a long day, it just limits them from all the extracurricular that, you would normally do, like you do in South Africa, but they don't go to school here on a Wednesday. School is closed on a Wednesday. So
lovely.
I know, it's crazy. So a lot of parents don't work on a Wednesday. They get the day off. It's arranged with work, or they get half a day, and then the kids do they do extracurricular. Or every town has what's it called? It's a recreation center. Every single town, and you can put your kids in there, and the price for them per day is pretty low. It's very affordable. It's kind of income based.
Can you believe it? So you basically have a 4-day work week.
You could. Not every job would give you that, but I think it's very much that way. And there's canteens in every school. So you actually, my concern, and it's a negative thing I have about the schools, is you can't take your own school lunch. You have to either eat what's prepared or you go home. And yeah, I'm not happy about that, because not every parent is sitting at home to bring their kids home,
Sure.
And I think it may change in the future. But yeah, I think the idea of the canteen, I get it. It's to make sure kids who might not necessarily be getting nutritious food at home have access to it at school. But how nutritious is it? I don't know.
Well, I think there's a lot of schools here that would love that, for their kids, because of exactly that. They're not getting the correct food at home, or they're not getting food at all for lunch.
Yeah, exactly. So I think from that point of view, I do support it. I think it would be nice to have both.
A little bit of that. A person's got to work at what fits your family, and ultimately, like I said, there is, in my book, there's only one thing. What is your value system? What do you want your kids to grow up? What values do you want to create around them?
Yeah, exactly.
That's been my biggest thing, for my kids.
Yeah.
I'm a mature mother. I was 37 when I had Kayla, my daughter. So, you're not a kid anymore. You know what's going on, and you, I think, make different choices when you're a bit
for sure.
You're older parent.
Yeah,
so, wow,
I agree.
Interesting. And economically, do you feel that it was a good move, or it is good for you guys, better in France than it would be in South Africa? That's a biggie.
It's a hard one to answer, because in South Africa we both worked. We had good jobs. I think we could have saved more, because we ate well. So money was spent on those kind of things, not material purchases, but just food and seeing what we could of the country. In France, my husband is on a good salary, and I think it would be on par with sort of, the lifestyle we have here versus like what he earned in South Africa in relation to the lifestyle. So I think it's fair. I don't work, so we've been able to manage on his salary. And like I said, we live a very simple life. So that helps. And the pandemic as well meant people spent less who aren't traveling, because we have family in Ireland. So that's kind of the place we would go to. And flights to go there are normally pretty okay. You know, it's like traveling within South Africa,
Yeah.
Within Europe, so it's not too bad. But yeah, I think earning wise, it's fine, and we were able, you know, we were wise with our house purchase. We bought further out of the city, so it meant we could cope with paying the mortgage on one salary. But I want to work, you know, because it's important for me. So that's definitely something that will add to our lifestyle for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're managing for now. I think our outgoings are really just bills, because we're home. We're home all the time.
Yeah.
And we don't really eat out. Our restaurants were closed since October, so you could only actually do takeout since 2 weeks ago. Now you can go to restaurants. So we had over 7 months of closed restaurants.
Yeah. This pandemic has been terrible for everyone. It is
I mean,
back to lockdown 2 now, level 2 lockdown. And the restaurant businesses are not doing well yet. I'm really, really struggling. There are so many people that's closed their businesses just in Hermanus, this little town. I mean, it's a small town. It's not big. It's even smaller than, you can almost compare it to Amanzimtoti size-wise.
Yes. Okay.
And the businesses are closing down one after the other. Companies that's been going for 40, 30 years are closing doors now.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing with small towns.
Yeah.
It's also very tourist dependent, isn't Hermanus? So, you know, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's been hard here. We've seen places close as well, but I think the difference here in France, and I don't know what's the situation now in South Africa, is people have been able to claim their salary whilst restaurants have been closed. So it's a minimum, but it's I know one person who's a waitress in a restaurant, and she couldn't work all these months, but she had bought an apartment, and all this happened kind of in the middle of COVID. So she has bills to pay, and she started cleaning houses. She started cleaning for me 3 hours a week because she had bills to pay. And now restaurants are opening up and she's on a contract, so she can't just break the contract. She has to go back to work. But in the middle of it, she found a job in a florist, so she's trying to work out what's going to be her best deal, but she earns more in the restaurants. So I like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, our government stole a lot of the money that was supposed to be paid to the unemployment.
I know, it's awful.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I can say it any other way I'd like to. They've embezzled so much of the money into these PPEs that there isn't money. You must see the queues of people standing in queues for months on end to try and get their 350 Rand.
Oh no.
From the government. Yeah. So things are really, really tough here. And I think that is where we understand that it's not getting better, it's actually getting worse. And as much as we collectively want to make it better, you're fighting a force that you can't actually fight anymore. And people are running scared. I mean, I look at myself and my family. My kids cannot stay in South Africa. They haven't got a future yet. So they have to, we've got to look at them moving abroad to go and study, and we haven't got universities because they're burning the places down. You know, so things are really, really tough here. And I'm really hoping that it's going to pick up and it will get better. But, you know, it has been declining, and the pandemic has just shown all the cracks. Which is very sad, because we've got a stunning country. We've got a beautiful country.
For sure.
It's declining. It's really declining. Anyway, my darling, it was lovely chatting to you. And I would like to know, when you do come to South Africa, what your experience is like.
Let's keep in touch.
I'm going to keep on making these videos. You know, you've got to understand, and you've got to listen to so many different people. Doesn't help talking to one person. You know, your perspective is completely different to the next person. Your experiences are different. So I think it is so important to speak to different people, at least 10 different people in one country, just to get an idea of what is going to work and what doesn't work.
I agree. And, when we were moving to South Africa, we had to do the same. We were leaving France. We just got here. We were here under a year. We were married 2 years. We were like starting to have thoughts about having a family. And we got this job opportunity. And I said to my husband, I said, if you choose not to take it, because it was his decision.
Yeah.
I said, if security in South Africa is your concern and your reason to not change it, well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to want to live there one day and I'm going to want to go. So you need a better reason. And yes, we lived in South Africa. We lived in a freestanding house. We did not live in a complex. So for the first year and a half, we were in a complex. Then we bought a house in Johannesburg. My husband traveled across Africa with his job. I was home alone. 80%, okay, let's say 75% of the time. We did have a little cottage on our property. So we had somebody renting from us and she worked for herself. So she was on the property a lot during the day. She wasn't always there, but just knowing there was somebody else there was nice. I got a lot of people say to me, aren't you worried? Aren't you scared? And I wasn't. I chose not to live in that fear. And it worked for me. And, the day I left the country, I left after him because he moved and then he came back to meet me and then we left, but I left a few days later. I just heaved a sigh of relief saying that worked out. We had an amazing experience. The only thing bad that happened to us was we were robbed internally. Somebody was robbing me for a few months and I did not realize it. And, that's something that happens everywhere, but that broke my heart because it was a trust thing. And other than that, I was just thankful that we had a good time and, it didn't end in any tragedy to us based on what I'd seen and experienced. And, sometimes I'd arrive at a robot 10 minutes after maybe something happened to someone and you just think, wow. And, when the bridge collapsed in Johannesburg on near the Sandton off-ramp, my husband was a few, I don't know, seconds away from it. And you think, oh my God, So yes, I'll reiterate again, I think if anybody wants to get in touch with me and you're sharing details, please feel free. I'm happy to be that person because when we were moving to South Africa, we asked people about salaries, about cost of things. We asked lots of questions because we wanted to make the right decision. We asked about areas to live in. We asked about banks to join. We asked all these questions that help people make an informed decision. And I know there's communities of South Africans in every country, like with every nationality, and there are different ones. They're the ones that hate it and will never go back. They're the ones that love it and want to go back. And then they're the ones, I guess, that
absolutely.
There's all types.
It takes all kinds to make this world go round.
Yes, and, yes, for sure.
A person's just got to do what feels good. Where you feel treated good or treated well, where you feel safe.
Yes.
And basically that's the bottom line. I've lived in a house in a very, very not that upmarket, but a pretty decent area in KZN. And I was broken in 4 times in less than a year. So, it is what it is. And all we say is, oh, thank God nothing terrible happened.
I know.
People don't want to live like that anymore. We don't want to wake up in the morning and say, thank God, they're broken, but at least we're okay. That's not okay. That's actually not okay. Anyway, my angel,
sorry.
Thank you so much.
I lost you there. I just lost you for a few seconds. I just wanted to say thank you and feel free to get in touch again. And just to reiterate, in my own family, I know my mother would never move back, but my father would. So people are so different, and we all want different things. So just do what's right for you, ultimately, because you have to put your head down at night and live with the decision. So. I don't think any judgment needs to be cast on anyone, whatever their decision is.
No, not at all. And a person's just got to do, the idea of this whole thing is to be informative. And when you've made a decision, to have an informed, to have made an informed decision based on what you got out. That's what it is.
Yeah. Totally. And also, you know, when you feel like you don't have an option and you don't have that foreign passport and you don't know how to get out, just start to do your homework. I mean, even a country like Mauritius is openly accepting South Africans because they want to grow their talent and they want people to benefit, and the government wants to benefit from bringing in talent. So even that is so close to home. It's an option. And I know many people that have done it. So I encourage people to explore that too.
Yeah, no, we're going to look at every country and we're going to look at what the options are.
Great. So let me know on an offline point of view if you need any help or connections or introductions. I'm happy to share any contacts I have.
You're a star. Thank you so much, Dharsh. And we'll chat to you very soon. I will send you my email address. Okay. And then we can maybe just correspond a little bit more in terms of, you know, things that I'd like to put out there, information that people might be asking somewhere down the line.
Yes. All okay. Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeannie.
Have an awesome day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. Keep well. Bye-bye.
Bye.